name is Mary Warner. I'm Brooks's daughter, and I've already made a mistake. My name is Mary Margaret Patterson Warner. If he ever saw me introduce myself as just Mary, he'd say, "That is not what I named you. Your name is Mary Margaret," named after his mother. I'm up here today to speak about my favorite person, my father, my hero. I've never eulogized anyone before. I don't get nervous speaking to crowds. I got that from him. But this is hard, quite possibly the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I want to honor him as what he was to me, a father, but I can't miss what he was to the rest of you. To encompass it all seems impossible. I have had the best role model at my side for 42 years, every single day. How lucky am I to have the smartest, kindest, and funniest guy right next to me all these years. Some might think as big as he is, as busy as he is, with his duties and responsibilities, he had to be short somewhere. That may be true, but it wasn't with me. He raised me with love and respect. He was gentle and kind. It was very simple. As I grew up, he was at every event. He made it to one of my dance recitals by landing in a helicopter behind the school, just in time to find a seat. He was home most nights to catch up on the daily stuff. He was strict with how we spoke, double negatives. I still cringe when I hear him. He was strict with our manners and with kindness. No arguing amongst siblings. Dinner table manners were insane. I can say I could eat with the queen and be fine, thanks to him. He wrestled with us. He played games with us. On Saturdays, he'd take my little brother, Brooks, and I to work with him when we were really little. We'd go up to the 1200 building where he was, and he would work for a few hours while Brooksy and I ran the hallways of the 1200 building. Then afterwards, we always would go get a car wash together, which I was deathly afraid of as a child. So he'd have me take off my seatbelt when we got into the car wash, and he'd have me climb over the seat, and I'd get into his lap, and I'd wrap my arms around him, and we'd snuggle in, and I could feel his arms around me to feel safe. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later, until I was an adult, I realized he did all that on purpose because he could get his car washed for free at the county. My dad loved family, and I just don't mean his children and his wife. I mean all of the family. He loved his parents immensely. He talked about them all the time. His best friends and the two people he respected most were his two siblings, who he's with now. He talked all the time about growing up with a twin. He always said it was great. You always had your best friend right next to you. His relationship with his sister Harriet is one to aspire to have. She just loved him, and he the same. He loved his cousins and his nieces and his nephews. I can say I know my fifth cousins on my dad's side. We were raised more like siblings than cousins. Not many can say that. He made sure we knew the value of family. We have many, many fun memories with this family, and we're all still very close, all because of him. My cousin Maggie has a great story. When she was a little girl, her family dog died. So for her next birthday, all she wanted was a puppy. She had begged and begged her parents. So Uncle Brooks, at the time, shows up to the party. While Maggie's opening her presents, he leans over and says to her, "What do you want more than anything in the world?" Of course, she said, "I want a puppy." As my Aunt Harriet's on the sidelines going, "Oh, Brooks." So he goes back to the car, and he comes back with a big box that has holes in it. Maggie is excited. She opens the box to find a rooster. He told her, "I didn't have time to get you a dog, but you should name him Rover." They spent the whole day, she says, running around the yard chasing a rooster, calling him Rover. Myself, my siblings, and my cousins can all thank him for teaching us to count to 7 at a very young age. They know what's coming. That was the length of his pour. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then after his first sip, he'd say, "You counted too fast." Yes, he was a political figure most of his life, and yes, he had important jobs. Yes, he traveled and he had speaking engagements almost every single day, but he was also a family man to the core. He was a gentle father, easy to talk to. He could always cheer you up. He'd do anything for us, especially me. He was always there for homework. It was always great having a genius on call. I'd give him a paper I wrote to look it over, and it'd come back looking like someone bled all over it with his red ink. He'd change my words, and I'd say, "Dad, I can't use that word. I don't even know what it means. Kids my age don't talk like that." He'd laugh, and then he'd begin to recite the dictionary and explain the word to me in all different ways. Then he'd be so pissed that I got a B when it was returned. I'd beg him not to call the school. I remember studying in college with a group, true story, and we needed a definition or some help on our paper. So I said, "Let's call Webster's." This was before Google. And they said, can you do that? And I said, "Yeah, sure, watch." So I called my dad and I put him on speakerphone. He was in his element and he loved it. A group of college kids asking him how to get our point across with fancy words. It was about a 35-minute call. Growing up with my dad as L. Brooks Patterson was to me just growing up with a dad. I get asked a lot, what was it like to have L. Brooks as your dad? For many years, I didn't really get it. He's just dad. But as I grew into an adult, I saw what everyone else saw. He's brilliant. His mind is literally one of a kind. The things he did for Oakland County, he was brilliant at identifying a need and then putting people and resources into motion to make it happen. He was a visionary. The Rainbow Connection, Automation Alley, the Brooksy Way, the list goes on. But when you think of all these amazing things, they didn't benefit him personally, but they benefited others greatly. That's what sets him apart from most. He changed people's lives for the better. We can't ever know how many. There's just too many. Who can say that about themselves? I get asked often if he influenced me in politics. Did you see the baby picture with the bumper sticker across my chest? Same Patterson for prosecutor? That was my hospital photo. So yes, I was. I remember being very young and President George H. Bush calling the House. I answered the phone. "This is the President of the United States calling for L. Brooks Patterson." "Dad!" A couple times that happened. When I was really little, he'd have the attention of a room or a table like he often did. And if I was there, we had this skit or joke that we did together, of course, all planned by him. He'd put me on his lap, or typically he made me stand on a chair, and he'd prompt me with, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And I'd answer with, "I'm going to marry a Democrat." Don't worry, I didn't. The whole room would laugh, much like you just did, and I'm not sure if I knew why at the time, but I knew that we were a duo, and I would just go along with him. I don't know how many of you have sat and have watched the news with him. He loved the news. He watched a lot of national news. He'd be laser focused, and then he'd start debating and yelling at the screen. He'd call out the reporter and the speaker by their first name. "Oh, come on, Peter, what a..." And then he'd maybe give the middle finger, and then he'd shake his head and walk away. So I got to see that as well. Growing up watching all this and listening to him over the years, you can say that I was definitely raised right. When I was a young adult, I was college, a little out of college, I called him up. I still remember where I was driving and exactly how it went. I called him up and I said, "I heard about this new politician coming up. He's an up-and-comer. I heard him speak on TV and he wasn't too bad." I went on to tell him a few things of what he said, and I told him I wanted Dad to check him out. He was like, "All right, what's his name?" I said, "I don't know, that's the hard part. It's like a really weird name. It's like Barack Obama." "God damn it, Dad. I mean, it went on. "Okay, Dad, I got it, Dad, I got it, click." What will I miss the most? It's the smallest, simplest things that I will miss the most. When he was with a group of friends, many as you know, someone would say it's time to leave. He was notorious for just a half. How many halves did he have in his life? Walking into my house, I'll miss that. And 30 seconds later saying, "A man could die of thirst around here." I'll miss when he couldn't recall a name or a date, and he'd call himself out in the third person. "Oh, come on, Brooks." We all know that one. He loved to watch the History Channel. He could clear a room so fast when we were kids, when he turned that on. He could and would watch it for hours. You can just ask his nurses, they're nodding. I'll miss seeing his name on my voting ballot. Voting will never be the same. I'll miss the cheat sheets he'd give me. I know my family and friends will too. They would text me, can I get the list from your dad? We all depended on him that day on who to vote for when it got down to the local stuff that we weren't too sure of. And I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I'm going to miss his jokes. He'd have his favorites, and I'd say, Dad, get some new material. And he'd look at me, and why? I'm going to miss our one-on-one phone calls, just the ones to say hi, love you, and have a good day. I'd always say, I love you, Dad. And he'd come back with, I love you more. In my dad's later years, and when I was an adult, he'd always say to me, I just want you to be proud of me. He said it more and more to me, especially the last few months. I think the one single thing I'm most proud of was his bravery. He was brave in all things. He was brave and courageous at work. We all saw that. He would stand for something he believed in, and he never wavered, no matter what. He'd take the lashing. He was okay with it because he stood for something. Another brave act was when Brooksy, my younger brother, tragically died. We grieved like no other. We still do. I remember thinking that my parents were going to shrivel up and die, and our family, as I knew it, our happy family, would be over. I was scared for our future. What would it look like? It was my mom and dad who carried us through. My dad kept his charm, his humor, and even though I knew he was in pain, so much pain he wouldn't talk about it, he kept on for us, and I will forever be grateful for that. Growing up, he never sat me down and said, you have to stand for something and never waver. He never did that. No, he did it by example. Little did I realize growing up, and even now, what I was witnessing. This is the number one thing I learned from him. Then his bravest act, his last act, was when he was told he had stage 4 cancer. I saw him cry once. It was when he held his press conference. You saw it on the video. He choked up. He was always the one holding us up when we got scared. He had the positivity, not us. He looked cancer in the eye, and he hammered down on it. When he was in his car accident, he was given a 3% chance to survive. Statistics say 11% of people with pancreatic cancer survive. He said, I'm a politician, no mathematician, but I like those odds. I never viewed my father as strong. I didn't. He was on the smarter side, so I thought he wasn't strong, or so I thought. But it wasn't until a few weeks ago, as I sat with him and watched him sleep and fight and be in terrible pain, that I realized how strong he was. It literally hit me like a ton of bricks. I had the strongest dad. He was strong in everything he did. Family, work, friends, and now sickness. So I sat next to him sleeping. I said, Dad, you are the strongest man I know. You're the smartest man I know. You're also the funniest man I know. And when I thought he was asleep, he opened his eyes and he said, and the coolest guy you know. Honest to God. I have to take a minute of my eulogy to not talk about my dad. I need to talk about a few others. The ones that were around him on a daily basis, the ones who loved and protected him. His work family. He loved you like he loved us. He truly did. Like he always said, I will retire when I wake up and don't want to go to work. That day never came for him, and how wonderful is that? His team around him, I know you looked up to him and loved him, but the feelings were mutual. He loved you as well. I've never, ever, ever heard him complain about work or coworkers. Never, and I mean all 5,500 of you. Each one of you, it was his main focus when he was diagnosed, staying in office to finish the job. To the 5th floor, you know who you are? Thank you. Thank you for it all. Thank you for allowing Dad to be brilliant and for guiding him when he needed it and always, always having his back and protecting him no matter what. He always said how smart his team was. I always thought, man, the smartest man saying that his team was smarter. To Kelly, who he trusted with it all, who fiercely protected him. Thank you. Often people who knew who my dad was would stop me and they'd say they wanted to talk to my dad, pick his brain or ask for a favor. They asked me to set it up, and it's really typically the people I didn't know. So I'd say, sure, let me give you Kelly's number. Talk to her, and good luck. I knew Dad was safe. He had Kelly outside that door. When Dad had his accident, he needed assistance. He had nurses and drivers full-time after that. We loved to tease him and talk about his entourage. At first, it was weird, I'm not going to lie. He'd come over, or we'd go out to lunch or something, and there'd be a nurse and a driver. I did get used to it quick. They would be at all our family gatherings. I learned to order a cake for my kid's birthday party and had 2 more for the driver and the nurse on call. It was a good feeling to know Dad had these guys around him at all times. Dad has had a full-time nurse with him 24/7 for 7.5 years. We've had a lot of turnover in those years, but they were all wonderful to him. The last 5, the 5 that were there as he battled, he trusted you and had to depend on you. I know how hard it was for him, his sharp mind with a failing body. You were all courageous. Together we went through hell, especially him. I know my family leaned on you, and you all handled it beautifully. Mr. P, as you lovingly called him, made an impact on you all. You've all told me how he's changed you for the better, how much you've learned from him. A few of you only knew him a few months. You only saw the sick man, never the strong politician, but you told me his manners, his gentle kindness, and his bravery are what you saw and what you'll carry with you. You told me you learned so much by watching him each day, and you were forever changed by him. Patty O'Brien, the only nurse he had for the entire 7 years, you were wonderful to him and for him. He trusted you, and for that I say thank you. He loved to tease you relentlessly. She'd just be doing her job, and she'd try to lean in and fix a shirt or pull it down, whatever, and he'd say, "Stop it, you pervert." He called her many other things that I can't say in this church. Patty, he wouldn't have kept you around that long if he didn't trust you and love you. Thank you for everything, especially that last week. When Dad got sick and we were together more, I saw quickly that his drivers were way more than that. They were his friends and his protectors, and they loved him. When Dad didn't even need a driver, they would just come over and sit with him, on and off duty. They did anything we needed to do for him. His dad got really sick. We all grew pretty close. These men have told me that they'd take a bullet for him. They prayed over him, and they physically carried him when he no longer could walk. They were brothers who never judged, never strayed, and who I will never forget. To those men sitting out there today, thank you. I'm not sure if Dad had the chance to say it, but thank you. To my mom, my dad's soulmate, the one that knew him the best. You've lost your best friend. He loved you so much. I am thankful to the both of you for showing your family the truest love, friendship. People get so confused. Wait, they're not married, and she's with Bruce, and your dad and Bruce are besties? Yep, that's right. There was too much love, respect, and history to ignore. And to the grandkids, I hope one day as you fall in love and get married, you think of this relationship that you've seen, one full of love and friendship, no matter the circumstances. I do have one thing about how well she knew him. And Dad's last day, Tim Sutherland, one of Dad's drivers, came in and asked if he could pray over Dad. He had a beautiful prayer. In one part of it, Tim said, he's going to be renewed in heaven, and he's going to have a new body like a 35-year-old. And I was sitting next to Mom, and under her breath, I heard her say, "Oh no, not again." In closing, I want to talk about his greatest achievement and the thing that brought him a lot of joy, his grandchildren. He was so proud of all of you. He loved to hear about you all. If you asked him what he wanted for Christmas, he'd just say, more pictures of the kids. That's it. The last month, we were told he couldn't have visitors, so we kept him pretty much locked away. He was too sick, and he couldn't go on his phone and talk to friends or email. All that had kind of stopped. But in the last week, I knew things weren't going our way. So I said to him, "Dad, do you want me to call anyone? You want me to invite some friends over?" I said, "Who can I bring over for you to see? Who do you want to visit?" He said, "My grandkids." Here's some advice I can give you on being his daughter that you can use as his grandchildren. Read about him. Read the articles, especially the old stuff, because it's fascinating. You'll find some crummy things written about him. Don't worry, it didn't hurt his feelings, only ours. Remember, he's tough and brave. If you wonder if you have any of him inside of you, think of the time you stood up for yourself or the time you cared for someone other than yourself. Think of him when you go into a job interview. He'll be there. He'll be with you as you study. He always said, study and work hard. He loved all of you so much, and as you go through life, keep his fire alive inside of you. Always be brave. Always stick up for what's right, no matter how hard it is or what people say or believe. When you are scared, think of him and how he'd handle it. It will give you courage. Remember, go Brooks or go home. My dad is my favorite person. I've lost my favorite person. The man I trusted more than anyone on this planet. The man who had my back in anything and my biggest cheerleader. The man who has loved me the longest. I will miss you every moment of my life, Dad. Each day I will think of you and talk to you. Thank you, Dad, for raising me with your gentle love. I'm so sad to see you go. But I'll be brave, and I'll be strong, like you taught me. And I will see you again someday. Until then, cheers, and I love you more.